Hello and welcome back to Not Just Another Fat Girl. This is Kristen, aka your resident fat girl, and I cannot tell you how many times I have attempted to record this video. I don't know what it is about this video, but I just cannot seem to get through it. And I'm a bit of a lazy bones in the sense of I don't edit my videos. I literally just one and done it. I do it all in one take. If I don't get it in one take, then I end it, I start all over again because I refuse to edit. I don't know what that says about me. I mean, aside from the fact that it makes me a little bit lazy. But on the upside, it also gives you a little bit more of a candid view. You will never, ever, ever have an overly edited video from me, which means that you will never, ever, ever have a mainstream societal overly edited, overly photoshopped, overly washed away message. You will always get kind of a little bit of a jumbled mess at times, but you will always get what I wanted you to get, and a little bit more. Um, so yeah, today though, I wanted to talk to you guys and gals about something that I think every single curvy person, plus size person, overweight person in general has faced at some point in time when it comes to dating. And that is we have all run into those people with fetishes because we fit, or at least statistically factually speaking, we check a lot of boxes for certain fetishes. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about those today, how to identify them, how to navigate them, and also deciding and discovering whether or not you would feel comfortable being in a relationship with somebody who has one, because that is huge. That is instrumental in deciding and planning and remaining in control of your dating life in general. So to start with, there are three types of fetishes in the BBW community, or at least three that I'm going to talk about today. And these three, just so you know, I am not using the proper names. I am using the names that I give them. So yeah, number one is fat lovers in general. And those are people who are aroused, turned on, simply by the sight and the feel of fat in and of itself. Typically, they never want someone to lose weight or to go below a certain weight. And they are or tend to be obsessed with the number. And that is typically how I personally identify these people. Number one, when I first start talking with them, they typically only want to talk about my body. And shortly after they are done talking about my body, they will begin asking probing questions. And number one, the question that I always tend to get from them is, how much do you weigh? And number one, I don't even know how much I weigh. But number two, even if I did, that's really none of your business. If you feel comfortable revealing your weight, if you know what your weight is, more power to you. Feel free to go for it. The problem that I have with fat lovers is not so much in the beginning, because to be honest with you, like the attention and the way that they compliment your body and stuff like that, in the beginning I think it can feel good for a lot of curvy women, especially who have not received that type of reassurance in the past. Who have never really felt good about themselves, or who are still either in the beginning or somewhere in the middle or along the way in their journey to self-love. The problem that I have is that at a certain point when you're in a relationship with that person, I think the lines can get blurred, and you will have a really hard time distinguishing whether they are with you because they like you as a person, because they care about you as a person, or if it's because they are so infatuated with your body, with the way that you look. And honestly, it's kind of almost a reverse of what so many thinner women or supermodels or women who are idealized by society. I think it's kind of, we're getting a little bit of a taste of what they go through on a regular basis through people with fat lover fetishes. And that's in the sense of you don't know who is superficial and who is not. You don't know who is going to love you for you, who does love you for you. The line is blurred. And I don't know about you, but me personally, I want somebody who is going to be with me because of who I am, because of what I bring to the table, not necessarily what I look like. What I look like is a big piece of the picture because attraction, sex, in the bedroom, all of that is a huge, huge, huge component of a relationship. It's a big chunk of it. It's a big piece of the pie. But longevity speaking, long term, I need to know that they're not just staying with me because of how I look. I need to know that if my looks were ever compromised, if I all of a sudden lost a bunch of weight, for some medical reason, or if I got cancer or something like that, I need to know that if my looks were to change, that I would not lose that person for that reason. And that is my number one issue with being with somebody who is a fat lover. The second type of fetish is kind of almost like a pairing, in the sense of you have feeders and you have feeties. So feeders are people who love to watch you eat. And typically, they honestly are a lot thinner. They're a lot thinner. They're thinner. They're leaner. They're fitter. A lot of them tend to be super athletic, really muscular, and really built. But they just have this obsession with watching somebody eat, and the feedies are the ones who are being fed, who are eating. And those tend to be the curvy guys or gals, the overweight person in the relationship. Now, pulling back and going to more of a subconscious level, this couple, this fetish is 100% a power play, whether they realize it or not. It's ego and power. So, number one, feeding somebody, it kind of feeds into the caveman mentality of you are taking care of your woman. You are giving her all that she needs and then some to maintain, to sustain her body. Um, Outside of that, though, a lot of times these couples have a goal weight in mind. Either it's an end weight or it is an amount to gain for the feedee, for the person being fed. And typically that goal, whether they realize it or not initially, is a goal that would make that person more reliant on the feeder. Meaning that the more weight that you gain, the less mobile you become. The more weight you gain, the less you can do for yourself. And then you become very dependent in the relationship. So it very much is almost kind of like I guess the closest thing I could relate it to is like a daddy-daughter type of relationship, in the sense of the feeder becomes the caretaker. And what starts out typically as a sexually driven, power motivated fetish turns into a completely different relationship, because at a certain point you can only gain so much weight and still be able to have sex. In the sense of, so we're really going to get into it right now, people. So if you weigh 1,000 pounds, it's not to say that you can't have sex, but okay, let's just think logistics right here, people, okay? I'm going to go there. He needs to have a pretty long D to be able to get through your folds, because there is only so much fat that you can move out of the way. Yeah, so I went there. Me personally, I could never, ever, ever be in a feeder-feedee relationship. Number one, because I am not the size that I am because I overeat. Actually, when I did a food journal for my doctor, I underate. I was eating far too few calories throughout the day. But I do have some medical conditions that make it very, very difficult to lose weight. And reversely, when you compound my medical conditions on top of the fact that I have to take steroid medication, um, it's not that it's impossible to lose weight, but it is extremely, extremely difficult. Essentially, the medicine that I take for my thyroid, at this point in time, we are just hoping to make it so that I don't gain any more weight, that I just maintain my weight. And I will not be able to start losing weight until, well, until we get some stuff under control. So that is not a relationship for me, and it never ever will be. But if it is for you, fine, great. I would just say to go in with your eyes open, though. Know and understand the dynamics of that type of relationship, and ask yourself whether or not you would be comfortable with it long term. I don't know about you, but there have been times when, frankly, the thought of eating has just totally turned me off. Like, there are times when I don't even want to eat. Like, just the thought of trying to force myself to eat makes me want to gag. And so to be in a relationship where that person's role is to kind of force me, to push me to eat more and more and more to achieve or reach this goal, is not something that I am comfortable with. Additionally, I'm a very independent woman. I do not rely on any man for anything except occasionally an O. That is the only time that I would ever, ever, ever rely on a man. And even that, I mean, let's be real here. We can all give ourselves a no. We don't really need somebody else for that. But yeah. So I will never, ever, ever be in that type of relationship. Actually, to be frank with you, the only type of relationship that I may possibly consider being in with somebody who has a fetish is fetish number 3, and that is crusher. Basically, it's guys or gals who are aroused, turned on mentally and physically, or sometimes just mentally, by the idea of someone sitting on them and essentially crushing them. So I say mentally, and I emphasize mentally because for a lot of people who want to be crushed, they are not necessarily driven sexually by it. It is just kind of more of like a subconscious or maybe even a conscious semi-obsession. And I can just talk to you about it from my perspective. So as a woman, being with a man, I enjoy feeling their weight on top of me. That subconsciously kind of feeds my need, my drive as a woman to be dominated. When a man's weight is on top of me, typically it is not it's not easy to move them, to push them off of me. And so it's kind of almost like a subconsciously kind of like a forced submission type of thing for me. So I enjoy knowing that the guy that I am with has no problem being the alpha male, taking control, specifically taking control of my pleasure, because that's what it's all about for me. It is about them feeling so comfortable, so confident in who they are, what they bring to the table, that they take control from me and they say, you know what? You're just going to sit there. I know what to do to get you off. I know what to do to get you to that end point, and I want to get you there. So it kind of feeds that for me. So I understand a crusher's mentality. And I think that is the only reason why I would be 100% comfortable being in a relationship with somebody who wants to be crushed. Simply because I enjoy it to a degree. Now, for me, it's not, I wouldn't want somebody just to sit on me. Like, I'm not okay with that. Like, that's not necessarily my description, my context of what I'm looking for. But I'm just talking about psychologically, I understand them. And so that's how I am okay with it. And I think that's what a lot of fetishes truly require is when you have a fetish, you need to find somebody who understands it. And if they can't understand it, then at least they are empathetic to it. You should never, ever, ever feel ashamed of liking, wanting, desiring anything whenever it comes to just, I guess, fetishes in general. They typically tend to be sexually motivated, but a lot of it is kind of a mental, a psychological, subconsciously driven ploy there. Um, but you should never be ashamed of it. You should never shame somebody for having a fetish because honestly, most of them, it's kind of like an addiction. Most of them really cannot control it. It really is kind of how they're wired. Um, Attraction is so unique and so different for everybody. And what what drives me sexually speaking, what attracts me to somebody else, what makes me want to rip off somebody's clothes is so unique, so different compared to most people. Um, and so I guess that's why I'm a little bit more sympathetic, a little bit more empathetic um, to people with fetishes, simply because I'm the type of person where I am not attracted to the boy next door type in the sense of what is in the Abercrombie and Finch, model campaigns, stuff like that. I don't fall into the mainstream society driven ideal of beauty. I don't find what society finds beautiful, I typically don't find beautiful. And it's not to say that it's not beautiful in certain contexts. It's not to say that I find anybody ugly, because honestly, if I look hard enough, I look long enough, I 100% can always find beauty in somebody. Um, but I'm just talking about in general how I'm able to understand and to relate to these people. Um, but again, I could not really be in a relationship with the majority of them. So definitely do your research. If you are talking to somebody who has a fetish, I would say don't automatically rule them out unless you already know, like 100% without a shadow of a doubt, that you could not handle that type of relationship. Like for me, I could not handle a feeder-feedy relationship, period. And I already know that. That is like a hardcore nope, never. I could not deal with a fat lover fetish because I would, in the back of my head, I would always be wondering, always be worrying if everything did kind of rectify itself, medically speaking, for me, and I did start to lose weight because they've already said, based off of how much I eat throughout the day, I'm going to lose weight. The pounds are going to start coming off once everything is kind of rectified and I'm off of my steroid medication. Would that person still love me if I was to lose, X number of pounds? So that would always be a fear in the back of my head. And that's the number one thing about any relationship, is that you have to be able to trust that person. And by trust, I mean be comfortable with them. Be comfortable with sharing the most vulnerable parts of you with them. And that is how I know I want to be comfortable in a fat lover relationship, because I would always worry, I would always feel vulnerable, I would always fear that they would walk away if I was to change physically. And so that is what you have to be careful of with fetishes. Whatever drives that person's fetish, whatever initially attracts them to you, you have to make sure that that does not become the only reason why they stay with you. And so long as you go in with your eyes open, so long as you guys have those talks, have that communication line totally open with each other, Meaning if you have a fear, if you have a concern, you can voice it and have them directly answer you. Don't beat around the bush. Be very direct with each other on this because it is so key. It is so, so important. So yeah, only way that this will work is if you guys are able to communicate and to find kind of a balance. The fetish should not be the reason why you are staying together. The fetish should never become the focal point of any relationship, period. So as long as you are able to find that balance, maintain that balance, and allow anything that you guys have to grow beyond the fetish, then I think absolutely it can work for you. And it can work well. I mean, there are plenty of people who have fetishes and who are married and who have been married for 20, 30 years, you know? So, like what you like, don't be ashamed of it. Talk to whoever you want to talk to. If they happen to have a fetish, though, I would just encourage you to do not be afraid to talk to them about it. Do not be afraid to ask questions, to research it, to do a Google search, to watch videos, even if they are erotic, sexy videos. Learn, know what you're getting into, and decide from there whether or not you feel like you could handle a relationship with somebody who has that, particularly if you're looking at a long-term relationship. Okay? I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the little subscribe button below. And until next time, stay fabulous.